Get to know Derrick Jones. He's a dynamic engineer, certified life coach, and host of the Relationship Gumbo Podcast. Get to know Tara Dervin. She's a USC Alum in the School of Cinematic Arts and the host of Conversations with Tara. On this special episode, we discuss relationship topics centered around my first short film, Dare to Love. So Tara Dervin and Derrick Jones, I want to welcome you both to the Chundria Show. How are you today?
Great. How are you?
Good.
You're good? So before we start talking about a lot of other things on this special episode of the Chundria Show, let's talk about you all. So Tara, tell me about your media platform, Conversations with Tara, why you started it.
So my production company umbrella that I created is called Baruch Hashem Productions, which is the Hebrew word. It just means thank God. And I was like, all of this stuff I'm seeing in the world that is just pain and that's just hurt, and it's like, well, what is at the root of how to, like, I don't know, just how to put good into the world. And I was like, God, God, and it's for everyone in all religions, God is just all encompassing, and gratitude is what helps me through my pain. And so I said, this project was really kind of born out of pain, in a weird way, and just wanting to like do a little drop in the bucket to like put some good out there to combat, that. And I just was like, I love to talk. How can I use that, in a way to get to know people, to help heal together? And I said, okay, I don't want to call it Conversations Matter because that's their thing, but Conversations with Tara. I just want to talk to people. I want to learn. I want to grow. And I've been so incredibly enhanced by the people that I've gotten to speak with, such as yourself. So thank you so much.
Well, congratulations on the birth of a brand new platform. I'm super excited to see what else comes, and it's truly awesome to hear how it was formed. Derrick Jones, you have your media platform, Relationship Gumbo. And you're also a life coach, which I think is,
Yes.
as well. So what came first, the podcast or the life coaching?
Okay, so I've learned how to speak about this quickly now. It's a long story, but I'm gonna put it really quick. And Tara, I'm a slightly an empath, so I was over here like. So anyway.
I'm very. Wait, I learned a phrase. We're HSPs, highly sensitive people.
Yes. You and I need to talk. Anyway, the podcast and the life coaching kind of go hand in hand, but the context behind it is that I'm also an engineer, right? I've been 20-year NASA engineer. So I'm a trained problem solver. Even from a kid, my mom wouldn't let the English teacher paper, even the English teacher would write it in red mark, and then my mom would come back behind the teacher and say, no, the teacher missed this. Now you got to go back a second time. And this was how she did things. And so I didn't realize that it would carry into what I do for work, because I like solving puzzles and problems. And the thing that happened throughout my career is I would have relationships and relationship pain and relationship trauma. And instead of me wallowing in it, I went back to, how do I solve the puzzle? Where did it start? How do I fix it? How do I fix me? How do I work on myself? And I would do that instinctually without even having to like go anywhere else to try to solve it, because I'm always trying to figure out the why. And the side effect to that is I started doing those assessments on the people I would date because I didn't want them to hurt me first, right? So over time, it becomes a skill. Decades later, it becomes a trained skill of watching human behavior and assessing human behavior. And what I realized is that when I encounter other people's relationships and they ask me questions, I would be able to say, okay, boom, this is it. Yep, been there, done that. Yep, this is it. And what I realized was I'm actually helping people unofficially for all of this time. And then I decided to gradually, turn it into something that I can market and monetize over at a point. But the helping people thing, gets you all warm and fuzzy in the chest, and you get the gratification, and it's like I feed off of that. So, and a lot of times, even though I do it professionally, I find myself wanting to help so many people. And I'm like, wait, no, those are billable hours. So the podcast, the life coaching came because I wanted to put something kind of, official behind my name instead of just saying I like to help people. So I went through the track of becoming a certified life coach. I did not want to go back to school to become a therapist or anything like that because I was like, I cannot. So the podcast was an extension of that, because this is, podcasting is starting to really, really blossom now. And I know I have a lot to say and a lot to share. And so because, we just talked about highly sensitive people and people who would claim, empath and wanting to help people, the way that I approach things, instead of being kind of like methodical college professor, I speak from an emotional standpoint. I speak from, life experience standpoint so that I can connect with more people so it doesn't sound like you're, reading from a PowerPoint. And I think that helped me kind of connect with people. So I want to touch people everywhere. I want to hit them on the audio, video, wherever I can get them and do my little piece.
Fantastic. I love that. I love that you decided to become a certified life coach in order to help people. And then the podcast is an extension of that. I love that you both are like that you both wanted to help people become better versions of themselves. And I think that's just a beautiful spirit to have. So congrats to the both of you on creating platforms that benefit others. You're not just talking. I'm trying to help you.
And you too. Like, we're all kindred spirits. I love it.
Yes. Now, you both were gracious enough to feature me on your platforms to promote my very first short film, Dare to Love. And not only did you watch the films, but you both gave me such amazing feedback, and I'm forever grateful. So it's my pleasure to invite you to be guests on my show today. So after watching the movie Dare to Love, did either of you relate to any of the characters in the film? Derrick, we'll start with you.
Well, I related to David. Was it David? Yes, David. Mm-hmm. I related to David, not in the sense of necessarily him making a decision about, what he was going to do with his life. I related to the entrepreneur in him and how sometimes when you have that passion and that dream that you kind of get tunnel vision, even though there's life going on around you. And then in his case, it was the relationship that he was in. And I related that when I made the comment to you about I was emotionally invested in it, I admit that came from a real place. Because I was like, I know what that feels like. And you really have to work hard to try to balance the two so that you don't lose out on the things that are happening around you and being mindful about that stuff. So yeah, David definitely was the one that I connected with the most.
Tara, what about you?
Oh man. Okay. So to your point, Derrick, about being an empath, when I see movies that are so well done, like Chundria's movie, Dare to Love, I empathize with every single character. I felt something because of the way that you created this story and because of the just excellent acting job that was done. I actually related to everybody, but if we're talking about like more circumstantial, I actually related to both David and Charisma because I've been on both sides. I think David I related to, just in also, like you said, Derrick, being that person who's trying to have these career goals and then also balance. Well, is that being selfish? I related to David because I relate to trying to balance those goals and then sometimes feeling, well, wait, am I being selfish if somebody else is depending on me on a personal level, and how do you balance that? But I also really related to Charisma because I've been on the flip side too. And I've been on that side when you're waiting for someone to text you back and you're like, wow, is your job really more important than me? And that hurts. It feels like a knife in your heart. And so I think, just again, using that idea of being an empath, it's like kind of seeing the other person's perspective on either end. And you helped to really kind of make me think about that. I was like, oh, how can I do better?
Awesome. That's splendid feedback. I want to get personal with you both. Can you think of a time in any of your past relationships where you felt like you had to choose love or career? Tara, I'll start with you.
I feel like it's always a test. When you are in the entertainment business, it will always be a test. And I think Like, it's just something that you always have to kind of be proactive about. And I think, actually, okay, specific example, I was in a play where I was, I had a romantic lead, and my relationship at the time, of course, he came to support me in the play, and he's sitting there in the front row, and I warned him and I told him, that I was playing opposite of someone else, and it was so disturbing to him that he actually walked out of the theater and broke up with me. But it made me think, because then it makes me wonder, well, I want to only take roles though that I really am comfortable with too, because at the end of the day, my relationships, they really are paramount in real life. And I don't want to be someone who sacrifices that to such an extent for my career, because I don't believe that that's the right thing either. But I think, again, it's a balance, you got to pick and choose.
Definitely about balance, for sure. What about you, Derrick?
I'm going to have to say that I don't think I've ever had to make that choice, because I am such if you just ask that simple question, I would always choose love, because I feel like the things that I do, even just the engineer thing is kind of linear. Like, it's like go to work 9 to 5. So I didn't really have to make that choice. But then when I started doing these several entrepreneurial ventures, it was a passion. I felt like, it was a part of my calling, but it always came like the love was here and the everything else was here. And every time that there would be kind of like tumultuousness, I would say it's really about communicating with your partner. This is for me, I'm helping to build a legacy for our family. I hear what you're saying, so I know how to detach from it, because I don't want to lose the love. So I'm always choosing love in real time. So it's just about making the adjustments you have to make. So I don't think I've ever sat back and was like, my career, or I always, just because of who I am, highly sensitive person, I need that love so much that everything else is is secondary to that.
That's definitely relatable. I mean, for myself, I could say I'm 39 now, but in my 20s, I always felt like I would have to choose. Like, relationships didn't work out. I was just as ambitious at 22 as I am at 39. And I always felt like I had to choose. I never felt like I really had anybody that was like 1,000% supportive of what I was doing. Like, you could tell they kind of wished I wasn't as ambitious. They wished I wasn't, I wouldn't drop a date to go do a red carpet. Like, I wished you would just keep the movie date. Why do you have to go drop everything to go do that? And that's just not fully understanding, what I hope to be, what I'm passionate about. And so how can it work, And so I feel like it feels selfish to be like, choose love over career, or for the person that feels like, okay, I'm not really ready for all of that right now. I'm so laser focused on career. So I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's just about finding somebody who's on that same page. And thankfully, I got that when I got married. My husband's phenomenal. My husband is also a talk show host. Shout out to Tara Brownlow. And so I didn't have to choose after all, but that was always a fear of mine, in my 20s. Like, I'm never gonna be able to have the best of both worlds. So in the film, David confided in his coworker Jessica for relationship advice, while Charisma confided in her sister Corinne. Do either of you find yourself giving people around you valuable advice? I know this is a spot on for you, Derrick. I mean, this is what you set out to do. But for you, Tara, do you find yourself giving advice or looking for advice from people more often than not?
Both. I definitely seek the advice of, as I said, I consider you already one of my mentors. I think it's important to have mentors and role models that you look up to. Nobody can do it alone in this journey, and to see people who have already, kind of done their own goals, it's inspiring. So I think, whether that's on a professional or personal level, but when it comes to relationships specifically, of course, I seek the input of my friends, but what I have learned from my mistakes is that you don't have to reveal everything to your friends, because there's some things that are private, and that can destroy a healthy relationship if you don't have any boundaries. On the flip side of that, I think that even when I am not with somebody, my friends do come to me for advice. And I think that stems from just knowing that I will tell it like it is to them. I think that's what a true friend is. That's what you saw in the movie too, why she confided in her. It's like, that that's someone who's going to tell you the truth. You don't want someone who will just tell you what you want to hear, because sometimes that little voice in the back of your head, you're not listening to it because you're all the red flags, you're just like, oh, whatever, he's cute. And then your friend's like, do you see that he's destructive? Actually, Derrick, the one video that I really saw of yours, I sent it to my friends. I gotta give you credit for it, but you talk about like going back to the same traumatic person 10 times. And I was like, ooh, he's talking to me. Yeah. So just, and then, but the people who tell you the truth, like those are your real friends. So.
Derrick, what you think about that? What she said that that resonated with her.
Yeah. So, and then I'm gonna say that, and then I'm gonna answer the actual question, even though I do it all the time. But I do have some context to your actual question too. But the reason why that resonates with a lot of people is because we have blinders on when we make dating choices. Like, we trust our own instincts or whatever, but we don't realize that if you really look back at your dating history, there's a lot of commonality amongst the people that you date. And it may not be aesthetically, it may not even be intelligence, but there's something that draws you to the same type of energy, the same type of person. And then you wonder why I'm getting hurt almost the same way each time. And what I always tell people is we always make people the boogie monster. They're hurting me, but a lot of times it's a you problem. Those people haven't changed. If they're going to be that way, you keep going back to the same person. You got to start looking inward, and looking inward is one of the hardest things that we have to do in our lives, is to make self-assessments of ourselves. But just really quick, because I know the shows don't last forever. We got time here. Advice to people comes naturally to people like myself and even Tara, who claim, or highly empathic, highly sensitive. The direct relation to others who may or may not be the same way is that they almost find instant comfort in someone that they feel like can understand them. And it's a gift and a curse, because if everybody comes to you, you then have to absorb good and bad energy, and you have to kind of have boundaries on that. And so for me, for whatever reason, I've been asking myself this whole life, why do people, when they come to you and talk, it's not like they like, hey, this is happening. It's like, yeah, and they tell you everything. And I'm like, you don't even know me. But it's something about the energy that you have of it's almost kind of like a nurturing, calming kind of energy. And they come in and they're like, I don't know why I'm telling you this. I never told anybody this in my whole life. So for me, it's natural for me to do this even as a business, because it's naturally just a part of who I am. So the answer to your question is yes. I find myself I'm telling people advice, but I don't go out and say, hey, let me talk to you. For some reason, they just naturally they come, and I don't. I'll take it though.
You attracted this life, Derrick. This is what you want. This is what you signed up for. Okay.
Exactly.
Now, oftentimes our relationships are reflections of our learned behavior. What were your early examples of love and relationships, and how have they shaped you in any way?
Oh, you said Derrick or Tara? I'm sorry.
Tara.
Tara. Oh, they kind of similar. So, I have a bone to pick with Hollywood. I think Hollywood needs changed a lot. That's a whole other show, and I'd be happy to have you both on that, talking about that. But I think there's a lot of corruption and a lot of just the examples sometimes that we see in the media, which has a huge influence on our children. Like children, I was always watching everything, every billboard, everything, even adults, their conversations, they'd think, oh, 4-year-old Tara, she's not listening. I was listening. So I think, we give kids credit, so a huge part of that is the media. So to me, I think I had a skewed perception at times of what it meant to have that fairy tale ending, or to have, the perfect relationship because of what I was seeing even on Disney Channel, or even just in the princess movies, the damsel in distress, and have the guy, her knight in armor, saving her. And it's like, you think that that's reality, but it's not. And that's where, just in my own professional life, I really am seeking to have better representation in Hollywood and all of the projects that I do. I think it's key, and I want to show people that love can have so many different forms. Yeah.
Derrick, what do you think?
Well, this interesting question, because I've had a lot of time to think about this over the past, I would say maybe 5 or 6 years, because like I said, I'm always perpetually trying to figure out the why of things. And for me, I think when I grew up, I saw a lot of couples, like my family, everybody's married, my parents married, but I didn't really see a lot of affection, right? I saw people that were together, but I didn't really see like the hugs and the kisses and the I love yous. And so for me, when I started to grow into adulthood, I found myself craving the affection, almost like obsessed with needing the hugs and the kisses and all of that stuff. And the reason why a lot of my relationships ended up kind of blowing up a little bit is because, for me personally, is I wanted that closeness so much that I didn't check off all the other stuff that I needed, right? So I'm picking people based on who was going to be the most affectionate with me versus who's the right person for Derrick, the whole person. And so once you start seeing the other stuff, then it's like, wait, we really don't match. It just feels good when I get hugs. So I had to learn how to detach from that, needing to have that so much, to kind of really look at like, who am I as a person? And then you can try to start making better decisions. So I think seeing stuff as a kid, sometimes you could turn out just like them, and sometimes you run from it and go the total opposite direction. And I think I went the opposite direction, and you live and you learn, but I think that's how it affected me.
Your comment on that brings me to the next point about love languages. So I was featured on LA Graham's My Life Reimagined podcast, and I promoted the movie, and she asked me about David and Charisma's love language in the film. So I told her I thought David's love language was affirmations, because he always needed those words of encouragement as an ambitious person. And Charisma's love language, I thought, was quality time, because she was like fervently expressing how much she wanted to be around him. You don't want to hang out, you don't want to sex, you don't want to do anything. She craved his attention when all he wanted to do was work. Who's wrong? Nobody's really wrong. It's just about them being on two different kind of playing fields, and them having two completely different love languages. So if I'm not tapping into your love language and you're not tapping into mine, it doesn't mean that we're not good people. It doesn't mean that we're necessarily not good together. We just haven't figured out a way to understand each other's love language. So out of affirmations, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch, what are both of your love languages and why? Start with you, Tara.
I'm very fascinated by this phenomenon. I really do think we are multifaceted creatures. We have different ways that we show love. Different people have to kind of sometimes learn each other's languages. The point is, though, that I actually think that I relate to all of them. Again, I think we all have a little bit of each. But I think it just depends on the circumstance.
Derrick, what's your love language?
I'm going to emphatically say words of affirmation.
Okay.
That's number one for me, because I'm such a giver. And a lot of times givers, it's a gift and a curse, but it's you're such a selfless person, and we'll say that we do it and we don't need anything back. But hearing those words of appreciation and thank you, and, I got your back, and, all of this, those kind of things, I need that. Like, from my significant other, I need for you to say thank you for doing that. And that's huge for me. Like, even above like all the other stuff. And most men will say the same thing. They just want to hear the words. Like, you may not see a touchy-feely man, but he may fix your car. If you fix a car and you just get it in drive and don't say thank you for doing that, you might feel away, right? So I'm not saying it's the only one, but that one is, I think it's above all. I like Tara said, you kind of touch on some of them a lot of times, but that one right there, if I don't get that, I'll detach. Like, I'm like, okay, she doesn't appreciate me. I know I'm a selfless person, but I kind of need to know. So
confirmation, I get it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, I want to thank you both for being my special guest on the Chundria Show today. Before you go, can you offer some encouragement for anyone watching who's interested in starting an interview show or podcast? Derrick, what advice do you have for somebody that wants to?
It's really simple. Whatever you decide to do, make sure that it comes from the pit of your stomach and you love it, because it's not always going to be fun. It's not always going to be the most amazing thing every time you walk into it. But the love that you have for it, just like a relationship, it's the foundation that you build on. And if you ever have any, disruption, you can always go back to the love and restart if you have to. I'm in a perpetual state of assessing and restarting stuff. And people are like, why did the thing change this year and it was different last year? No, I need to make sure that it works for everybody. So just love it. If you love it, you'll never stop.
Love that. Tara, what do you think? What advice do you have for someone watching?
I second that. I think it all comes down to love. This year has been a huge wake-up call for anybody who's like an artist or anything, actually, no matter what you're doing, to really reassess, do I love this? They say if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. Well, I don't know if that's true, but it's somewhat true, because whether it's feast or famine, whether you're rich or poor, whether you're doing this, for a small audience or on major TV, it's, do you love it? Because again, that's going to be what you're left with. And I would also add to that, something that I'm constantly trying to build up like a thick skin too, is to really know that you're going to have lots of opinions when you put yourself out there. It's just the nature of the beast. And being able to take that in stride, to be able to take constructive criticism, but also when there is really true hate in the world, that we have to be cognizant of it, but to somehow like put up such a barrier of love. That's how I combat it, and focus on the good, because there's so much good.
So much good in the world. You are absolutely right. Well, again, I thank you both for being my special guest.
To have people pick up that then.
Okay. Well, I wish you both the very best in all of your endeavors and wish you a prosperous rest of the year. Thank you so much for watching my movie, for promoting me on your platforms, and best of all, for being my special guest today.